Well, for more, I'm joined now by Bradley Bowman. He's Senior Director of the Center on Military and Political Power with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He has taught at West Point, and he served more than 15 years as an active duty U.S. Army officer, and that includes time as a Black Hawk pilot. Brad, it's good to have you back on the program. You heard that soundbite there from the Secretary. He said that soldiers are not bound by stupid rules of engagement. What did he mean?
Thanks for the opportunity to join you. Rules of engagement are specific instructions to combat forces about how to behave in a certain theater. And there's several things that are being balanced there. One is mission effectiveness. The other is risk to civilians and the desire to minimize civilian casualties, and the ability for service members to accomplish their mission and return home to their families. So all of those things are valuable, and in any given context, those are balanced in the rules of engagement. And so what the Secretary is saying is that he's going to be leaning more toward the mission effectiveness and on that spectrum I just described.
You have spent many years in the military. When Hegseth said that he is tired of looking out and seeing fat soldiers in formation, was he describing the U.S. Armed Forces that you know?
The U.S. military is the most formidable military in the world, maybe in human history. But that doesn't mean that we don't have problems and room for improvement. When you look at readiness standards and physical fitness standards, the truth is that they vary from unit to unit and they're unevenly enforced. And I do believe that standards are important and should be enforced. And in some cases, we haven't already done that. So if he's focusing on warfighting, which is the primary job of the department, and the readiness of individuals and units to do that, I think that's an appropriate prioritization.
And Brad, does he have a point when he implies that promotions have been awarded based on race and gender and not on merit?
The merit discussion is an important one. I believe a true meritocracy requires you to set standards that are based on what the mission requires, no more, no less. And that's going to be different for an infantryman versus a pilot versus a cyber warrior. And so you design the standards for that mission, and then you do not lower those standards, and then you allow people to compete for those positions, and there is no room for any considerations of gender or race in that process, in my view.
Okay. Do you think that those standards have been lowered?
In some cases, they have. It's just a fact. When you look at standards, I'm not saying why that was done, but if you look at standards going back to the 1990s and the standards for some schools, we have seen an adjustment of standards from time to time. I don't know what the motives were in those cases. But again, focus on the mission. What does an infantryman need to do to accomplish the mission? What does an aviator or cyber warrior establish that and enforce it? And it should be in a true meritocracy. One's gender or race should not matter. Let everyone compete, and those who meet it get the position. Those who don't.
Okay. Hegseth had a message for America's allies today as well. Take a listen to what he said.
The moment requires restoring and refocusing our defense industrial base, our shipbuilding industry, and onshoring all critical components. It requires, as President Trump has done, getting our allies and partners to step up and share the burden. America cannot do everything. The free world requires allies with real hard power, real military leadership, and real military capabilities.
Brad, was he pointing the finger there to NATO members such as Germany?
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said this summer that we're seeing unprecedented cooperation between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea that's making each of them more formidable. So the United States, as I just said a moment ago, is the most powerful military in the world, but we need help. We need capable partners, and we have them. We have a network of allies that would make that makes our adversaries jealous. But in some cases, countries, including Germany, in the past, have not stepped forward to carry their fair share of the burden in terms of defense spending. And we're playing catch up as a result in Eastern Europe and Ukraine. So we're in a better place now with these commitments to go to 5%, 3.5 and 1.5 for a total of 5%. But checks in the mail. Let's see if countries like Germany deliver on that or not.
Yeah, show me the money, as they once said in a movie. U.S. President Donald Trump, he also spoke today. I want you to take a look and listen at what happened and what did not happen when the president walked onto the stage earlier today. Take a look.
Thank you very much, Pete. Great job you're doing, too. Fantastic job. I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very... Oh, don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank. There goes your future.
Brett, if you could read the room for us and for our viewers around the world, why were all of these generals and admirals, why were they so silent when their commander-in-chief walked onto the stage and started talking?
You know, to someone who's not familiar with the U.S. military, that might seem very odd. But in the military, when a commander or the commander-in-chief walks in the room, you stand up, you stand at the position of attention, and you're silent. That's what you do. It's a form of respect. And after all, this is not a campaign rally. This is the commander-in-chief talking to his senior commanders. And so that was the appropriate thing for them to do. At times, you know, I thought the president said important things. At times, it sounded like a political campaign with him criticizing the other party and the previous president. And I think that was unfortunately inappropriate when talking to the U.S. military, which operates outside, does operate and should operate outside of politics.
Yeah. What did you make of the message that Trump had for the military's top brass today? Especially, he spoke about the enemy from within and about deploying the military to major U.S. cities. And I think he said that maybe the military could use these deployments in the U.S. as a training ground. I mean, was he saying U.S. soldiers training by aiming their weapons at U.S. citizens?
You know, George Washington said, I'm paraphrasing, when I became a soldier, I did not set aside the citizen. That's engraved, I believe, on the amphitheater, Arlington National Cemetery. Right. Let's remember that American service members are citizens, and they are defending American citizens, and that's their core job. And so anything that sets the U.S. military against the citizens they protect would certainly be a perverse outcome that would be inconsistent with the primary purposes of the Department of Defense. We must be very careful, in my view, how we use the U.S. military here at home, because that civil-military relationship is so important and needs to be nurtured and treated with respect.
You know, you and I, we've talked before, several times actually, about the blurring of lines between politics and military policy. If we take Trump's comments today out of that equation, what, if anything, did today's meeting in Quantico change about how the military operates?
You know, I'm not sure. There were a lot of dire concerns and warnings expressed before this meeting, but, you know, it wasn't some super secret meeting. It was live streamed. And really, a lot of the comments we heard from the Secretary and the President were things they've been saying for many, many months. There are some things where I thought it was excellent, with the focus on warfighting and readiness and the serious times we live in and the need for good training and good leaders and acting quickly to defend ourselves, our interests, and our allies. There are other things that I thought were unhelpful that I would advise that they not say. But I think our military is led by professional individuals.
Can you give me an example, Brad?
I think the comment about using the U.S. military in American cities as a training ground, that should never have been said. That there's deep problems behind that. And as I said earlier, I think the president's comments to these hundreds of American military leaders criticizing the previous president and the other party is not appropriate, because again, when you as I taught at West Point, to the cadets there that were going to be future Army officers, we swear an oath to the Constitution and not a president or a party. And I think we need to respect that unique and wonderful status of the U.S. military, and including the commander-in-chief needs to respect that.
All right. Brad Bowman, as always, we appreciate your time and your valuable insights as someone who has put in time on the ground and inside the establishment. Thank you.
Thank you.